Do the Springboks have a selection problem? Well, many of you will say to me that never in rugby can you have a selection problem. The more options you have, the better. But I've got to tell you, I've been putting myself in Rassie and Jock Ninoba's shoes, and it's difficult at the moment for these guys because on the one side you have a Springbok team that really likes to play with forward type rugby. So they want to play it up front. That is, for me, the foundation and the DNA of Springbok rugby. They want to have enough players to make an impact from the bench. And why they've created this much depth is to have players to come off the bench. But usually it is more forward-based players that they want from the bench to have more of an impact in, the front row, because that is really where they try and really break down other teams. But what's happened with the injuries and just the team selection in general, with all those scrum offs that they picked at the start of the year and less forwards, they have got this situation now where they've got a lot of backline players, like too many options actually. And from a forward perspective, it now becomes a bit more difficult in how they go about it between their bomb squad and their split on the bench. Now, they usually go for at least a 6-2 split to have enough forwards to make that impact when they come on second half. But my question is now, having that's just returned and able to, you had a playoffs. You don't have any more playoffs games to really get some game time to see if he's ready. You kind of have to put him on the bench on, these playoff games and give him game time. So that is already one position on your bench taken, and it's kind of a forced decision if you want to get into this World Cup to play a role in this World Cup. But let me explain it a little bit more, and then maybe you guys will see where I'm coming from. So let's start with just the normal forward pack that the Springboks will go for. So usually, the usuals will play Pieter-Steph du Toit, either Visa or Dwayne Vermeulen, and then on the other side they'll definitely play Pieter-Steph du Toit, with their locks usually being Etzebeth, and then the other option could be any of the other locks, which could be Ori, it could be obviously John Klein. So and then usually they use Ergius Neyman from the bench. And then when you look at the forward pack, they usually go with two props. It could be Malherbe, it could be... they haven't used Oxenche in the starting lineup at the moment. I do feel he's probably a good starter for the Springboks. Or they will play, Koch or a Nakanaya Kane. But they've got a lot of options, right? So the point I'm trying to make is then they want a really strong bench to come on. So firstly, you need a hooker to come on. So they will definitely go for Bongi and Bunambi on the bench. Then the next question will be around, are they going to bring on two locks as impact again? Because that takes them to 3. They will definitely have to play 2 props coming on off of the bench. That takes them to 5. Then they have one option left for a loose forward, maybe a Visa, Marco van Staden. In my opinion, it's got to be a Kwagga Smith. I just think from the bench, he's probably a better player than a Visa, better player than a Dwayne Vermeulen or a Marco van Staden. And then, I failed to mention, you still got a Franco Mostert that will probably start with the Etzebeth. And then, are they going to bring on 2 locks? Or are they just going to go for one lock, which might be Ergius Neyman, and look at another loose forward in maybe the form of a, looking at someone like a Kwagga Smith and another player. But the fact is it's going to be tough for them to only go for 5 players, and they usually go for at least 6 forwards. It's going to be tough for them to go with only 5 forwards. They usually go for at least 6 forwards so that they make a big impact, and it's more focused on bringing on a lot of forwards. But now we look at this backline and all the options in the backline, If you look at just the starting lineup of the backline, I think it will be a Faf de Klerk, Delendi, and I don't think they'll start. So the first question mark will be around that outside centre. Do they play a Krill? Do they look at a Kanan Moody? Their decision on that outside centre is going to be interesting. Do they maybe still look at this option of Pollard coming into that starting side with Manie Libbok? We don't know. But you kind of know it's going to be a Libbok, de Klerk, de Lendi. Those are all kind of confirmed. And when you look at the wings, I think it's probably definitely going to be a Arendse and a Chesson Colby. I don't think they'll put Kane and Moody back on the wing and drop a Arendse. You know, it's just not fair from many perspectives. And then on that fullback position, I know Rassie and them love a Leroux, but I've got to say Willemse on that fullback position's got to be the first choice right now. So then going to the bench. Now, what do? Let's already look at this. So say the Springboks go for a 6-2 split. If they want to give game time, Um's got to be on the bench. Now, what do you do now? Then he's not really a utility. And you do need then a scrum half where, if I'm looking at the scrum halves that can play utility as well, there's only one that really stand out, and that would be a Grant Williams that you can use on wing, or you can use as a scrum half. So that's already your two choices. So we can probably definitely say that Williams will be picked as the one of the bench players above a Kobus Reinach or a Hendricks, purely because his utility. You can use him on the wing, or you can use him on scrum half. But now you get to the rest of the guys that you're sitting on the bench. And this is where the headache starts, guys. You know you need an there to give him game time that second half. That's your second position gone on the bench. Are you going to stick to a 6-2 split and keep Pollard out of the team? Then you got to really look at Pollard on that outside center. And now the Springboks are almost being forced into this whole... You know, maybe they're going to have to look at a Pollard on the outside center to have enough options when it comes to this bench if they want to go 6-2. If they go 5-3, that's probably the only way I see the Springboks moving forward and kind of moving away from this bomb squad 6-2. Because if they're going to want to stick to the bomb squad 6-2, they need to find a way for Pollard to stay in the team. Because you can't have a Pollard on the bench in this game and an on the bench. It's just, to me, just those two guys, one of them will have to drop because you need a scrum half. And that's probably going to be Williams. So, yeah, guys, I mean, if you then look at the type of players that will not, I can almost guarantee you, won't play in this quarterfinal. Looking at names like Hendricks, you're looking at names like Kobus Reinach, you're looking at a Leroux. Probably a Leroux, to me, why would you want to keep him in that 23 if Willemse is going to be your first choice fullback, and you've got that utility and a Pollard coming on? It will probably not be used. And if Pollard, what are they going to do with him? Will they maybe drop Manie Libbok then to a fullback and Pollard in 10? So not really space for Leroux in this team as it looks now that has really pushed some players out of this starting lineup. And that's the question. Do they want to use in this World Cup? Because maybe they just don't. If they're going to want to use him, which I believe they will, they need to give him game time in the quarterfinals. And that means you're pushing out quite a good player in that back line, Then you sit with, Estrazen, that's been pretty good. He will not, in my opinion, be able to be in that 23. And then the other option is, are they going to go for a Kriel on outside center to start the game? Or do they go for something like a Moody on the outside? And whichever of those two players don't make the team will also not make the bench, because on that bench you're gonna need and you're gonna need a Pollard, and you're gonna need a scrum half, which will be Williams. So that's my opinion, guys. I think it's probably gonna be a 5-3 split for this World Cup quarterfinals instead of a 6-2, because as soon as they go 6-2, they've made it, in certain ways, it's made it really difficult for them. I won't say they made that difficult for themselves. Maybe in a way with having so many backs options. But look, I mean, it's good to have all of this because you see there's been injuries and now they have options. But it does make a bit of a selection headache, because if you want in there, you want Pollard on the bench, and you want on the bench, then you're already out. You can't play your 6-2 after that if you bring in a Williams on scrum half. Now, the only way that you can fix that is by saying, okay, Pollard, move to 13. We still play a 6-2 split. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for them in this game to really be able to play a 6-2 split. You're going to see a big name like a Kriel or a Moody also not be part of this 23 startup, just because of you need to pick only 23 players, and you need to have a good, big impact with your forwards. It's not a team really we want to be having too many backs on the bench. We want more forwards on the bench, because this is where the Springboks are stronger. You want a Kwagga Smith there. You want a John Klein and an Archie Snyman in there. You need two of the props that didn't start to come off, to come on. You probably need a Bonambi to come on. So it's very hard to go to a 5-3 split for the Springboks with the amount of impact big boys that they have to come on from the bench. So I am very curious in this game, because they really probably need to go for a 6-2 split, in my opinion. Do you want to play a running type game? You want to first try and dominate up front, start getting over that breakdowns, those loose balls. You need a Kwagga there. You know, even a Dion Fourie was really good at that. You kind of need those forwards to the jackling. You need the forwards to really make a big impact, and then the Springboks can run the backs. And for that reason, I have to almost feel that either they need to not play in this game, or they need to look at moving Pollard into that outside center position. People say, oh, it can't be done. He doesn't have enough pace. Absolutely can it be done. And then you get another option kicker as well. His defense is outstanding. He's got really good defense and will be really good. To me, I would have loved to see Pollard go to 13. I don't know if the Springboks will make such a risky move. They might have to play this hand. The only other option is don't play in this game. Keep him out and kind of say we can't do it right now, and kind of look at only another two utility backs. Maybe looking at a Grant Williams and a Kanan Moody or Krill. It's going to be so interesting to see how they pick this team, guys, because when you start really looking at the full team, you are always going to say, oh, they're crazy. They can't keep out a Moody. They can't keep out this player or that player. There's many options that you can look at from forwards and backs. But if they want to go and achieve the 6-2 split, there's definitely some quality backs that will not play in this 23 heading up to the quarters. You know, the Springboks call their team really early before, the games. I'm curious to see if they'll do it in this game. Very curious to see how they bring into this from the bench, because that does make it really difficult for them looking to still stick to a 6-2 split. Is this the start of an era of new type of Springbok rugby? And could this cost them in the quarters? Up front, play for me to your strengths, to your set pieces, play to your line-outs, play to the stuff always works. First, get that front dominance, and then run it with your backs. If they're going to look at having more backs and less forwards, you're always going to ask that question, was there enough kind of weight in the front pack to make the same kind of impact as what they've done before? We saw against the likes of Ireland, they didn't even bring that front pack up on the same time and had the kind of same impact as what they had against the All Blacks in the last game, in the last warm-up game at Twickenham. If they don't do that, are they actually just going to start looking at a 5-3 split? It's an interesting discussion to have. Guys, I don't say if they go 5-3, they can't still dominate up front. They've got enough forwards. So it's going to be really, really, I want to see what Rassie and Ninoba does in this game, because this is really going to be quite a headache for them to make this decision with all the options, and with having a Pollard and that's both going to be on the bench, and they want to play both of them. That doesn't leave them with much other options. If they want to play both those guys and they need a scrum off, they really need to immediately look to incorporate one of those players onto the starting 15. And who is that going to be? Because you don't want to just stick right in there after injury. Or are they going to do that? Maybe they do, because that would kind of take their headache away a bit, because Pollard would be a good utility. And then you also have Grant Williams, which can go on. Pollard can then slot into the center positions if there's an injury. And we know Grant Williams can cover scrum off and the wings. Then they can go for 6-2. But you can run in circles, with all the different things what they could pick. The big question is, do they feel they can start straight away? Because that's not the way they felt with Pollard. They said, give him time. There's going to not be enough time for both Pollard and to really have a lot of time to get into it. They're either going to have to get into it or make way for a lot of these informed players that's been playing right through this World Cup and warm-up games. So all I guess good problems to have, because you have options, but also very tricky, because if you make the wrong decision at this point in the quarters, it could cost you a World Cup. So yes, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes, but just thought I'd do it for a little while just to see what it's like. And guys, this is not going to be an easy selection for them. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. And thanks for watching as always. Bye.